everyone, and welcome to our session, Rapid, Secure, Compliant, a new approach to government data collection. My name is Emily Jarvis, and I'm the Senior Manager for Events here at GovLoop. And today I also get to be your moderator, so thanks so much for joining me. And a special thank you to our sponsors at Form Assembly for helping us put on this session today. So let's get right into it. Because for agencies prioritizing digital services, the goal is clear: move faster, eliminate paper, elevate the citizen experience. However, for agencies handling sensitive information, moving fast often collides with the wall of complex compliance requirements. The result can be fragmented or shadow IT, where manual workarounds and siloed workflows that comprise both security and constituent trust. So it's time to modernize that digital front door of government data. And today, our experts will share new tools that can help agencies build sophisticated data collection processes that meet the strictest standards of security and compliance. It's going to be a great conversation, but before we get started, we do have a few housekeeping items to go over with you all. So first things first, we do have that resources tab available for you, and there are a wealth of great resources available for you to download, and you don't want to miss out on a single learning opportunity. That's also where you can learn a little bit more about our speakers, so make sure you check that out. Of course, we want you to have the most access possible, so if you need that closed captioning feature, just look for that show captions icon along the bottom right-hand side of the panel. Of course, we hope you don't have any technical difficulties, but if you do, send us a message through that Q&A tab, and my colleagues at GovLoop will get you all sorted out. You can use that same tab to submit questions to our speakers, and we want your questions, so don't you dare be shy. Put them in early and often. And you can also chat with your fellow attendees today using that chat button. I'm dialing in from Rockville, Maryland. Let me know where you all are logging in from. I see someone else is from Maryland, so hello, neighbor. Finally, we are recording this training, so check your inboxes tomorrow because we'll email you a link so you can watch the entire session on demand. All right, with all of that housekeeping out of the way, I want to introduce you to our speakers. Joining us, we have Trisha Drexler, who's the Senior Business Systems Analyst and the Salesforce Admin and Team Lead for Multnomah County in Oregon. We have Charlie Clavili, who is the Managing Principal at IGEN-X, and Buyan Tiagarden, who is the Principal Owner at IGEN-X. Thank you all so much for being with us today. And I want to start off laying the groundwork a little bit because the last couple of years have been really a huge whirlwind of tech updates across all the sectors. AI has come into the mix in new and different ways. There's been dramatic improvements in AI's capabilities specifically. And with all of these changes, there's a host of new risks and compliance concerns. So with that as our premise, Charlie, how are you seeing the public sector organizations impacted by and responding to these changes?
Yeah, I think overall, the most interesting aspect, and some of that obviously has to do with the current administration and their goals, but the idea is that we want faster acquisition and we don't want to bite off as big a program and modernization effort as we used to. So it really gives a chance to kind of look at the various pieces and parts,
Mhm.
securing wins along the way. I think everybody understands that AI and other technologies are not necessarily the panacea that everybody
Yeah.
knows right now. How do we use them? Are we allowed to use them? Is it, external data, internal data? So figuring those out, I think, tend to make people move slower and more cautiously. But I think also the current acquisition and procurement landscape says, hey, let's do something with maybe some dummy data and let's do a 3 or 6 month pilot so we can actually see how it's going to work, which gives the customer a much better idea at visualizing exactly how those changes are going to impact what they want to do. And so it's more of a step-by-step journey along the way as opposed to hey, plunk down $100 million and in 5 years we hope we hit the mark.
Yeah, that does seem like a more organized approach. Bhuyan, from your perspective, where are you seeing public sector agencies impacted and responding to some of these changes?
So I've seen, again, with the spray of AI right now and with the lens of public sector, with compliance and security and controlling risks as one of the primary objectives, I'm seeing different use cases where public sector agencies are kind of dabbling, again, from a data collection as well as from a compliance standpoint. Again, this could be from the citizens' online portals where there's multi-step forms involved with wizards involved. And then there's also claim management solutions, which come into play from a public sector standpoint. So most of these organizations, as they look at their digital landscape, as well as from a modernization standpoint, look at multiple tools as part of this approach. And then the overall strategy is to kind of, reduce the risk. Again, not having multiple tools, but having one tool to kind of manage the solution. So that's what most of the IT organizations are kind of looking at
Mhm.
with the old approach has been like, off the shelf, legacy systems or custom build. That's been the approach. Now there's a lot of cost to maintenance and risks in security. So looking at one or two centralized solutions is where the IT organizations are looking at the moment.
Gotcha. And Trisha, you have the unenviable position here of going third after Charlie and Booyan. But you're actually in the government agency. What are you seeing from your purview as where your organizations are being impacted the most and where you're looking to respond to some of these tech evolutions?
Mhm. Thanks, Emily. So, I mean, AI is definitely an area of rapid changes. At the county, we're actually looking at opportunities where AI could be implemented to improve processes with fast yet reliable results. And that's kind of where the cautious that Charlie mentioned was being able to really trust the data that we're getting out of AI is the area that is kind of holding some things back. But we certainly have lots of pilot projects where we're looking to see where we can improve things. Internally, we've used it on, just being able to pull information out of large documentation files, some bots that we're working on implementing. So some areas that we definitely want to be able to use AI, but we just want to make sure that it's something that we can trust the results before we go forward too quickly.
I think that trust piece of the conversation is so important. And I know we're going to get into that kind of as we go throughout today's session. But before I get into kind of the next questions here, I do have our first polling question. And this is going to pop up on your screen in just a moment. And for this polling question, we want to know what is the biggest bottleneck in your current data collection process? And I'm going to give you all a few minutes here to answer that question. And while they do, I want to flip this for our presenters here today and talk about that data collection piece because as Trisha just mentioned, obviously data is what is fueling these AI tools and we need to make sure that we're fueling it with the proper areas. So Bhuyan, from your perspective, when we talk about data collection, we often talk about websites or web forms as the digital front door, but the back end integration, that is where a lot of the efficiency lives. Can you explain how a dedicated data collection layer, first of all, what it is and how it can prevent a shadow IT problem?
Thank you, Emily. So again, based on my experience working, across the gamut from commercial to public sector organizations, one of the things I've seen is again use cases apply. So we have worked with citizen management portals where there's a request for a form or for an information or benefit management applications where there's multi-step forms. I've seen IT leaders and IT organizations build multi-step wizards. Now, the old approach has been okay, off-the-shelf platforms was one of the
Yeah.
thought process where they were looking at, and then they might also go into customization, customization or custom code applications, which was used. But as they kind of went through that approach, and then the other use cases could be about claim management systems or case management system, public sector wide. Now, these are forms from a data collection, but where these evolved into is a plethora of tools, too hard to maintain, compliance all across the board. So now IT organizations are looking at this one digital tool to centralize all this data so that
Mhm.
they can do that. That's number one. So that's the front end piece of it. But what this centralized tool kind of helps is integrate with the core platforms. At the end of the day, data collection should integrate with the back end systems, right? That's the end of it, whether it's case management, benefit management, or constituent management systems. So that's where the value add is. And so most of the IT organizations are leaning towards, this one centralized tool, which helps to reduce the cost, number one, from a maintenance standpoint. Secondly, from a compliance standpoint, kind of manage it in one place. Then, multiple tools where you're audited and then where the cost of audits become crazy and security compliance becomes a big headache. So that's where I've seen, a lot of IT organizations looking at this one kind of solution at this point.
Makes a whole lot of sense. All right, we are going to build with you, Charlie, on Bouillon's point here in just a second. I just want to remind the few folks who maybe haven't taken the poll to go ahead and do so because I'm going to close that out soon. But Charlie, from your perspective, adding on to what Bouillon just said, we know shadow IT can and is a problem within organizations. What do you see as maybe some of the challenges and opportunities when you look at this data collection layer and its ability to maybe prevent or circumvent that shadow IT problem? Oh, I think you're on mute, Charlie.
You said that was going to happen, Emily, and I figured I could manage it, but clearly I cannot. Um, I think that, certainly what Bouillon was alluding to as well is that, the everybody's looking for the perfect system of record, right? Least amount of moves, least allowed amount of data entry points. Ideally, the data collection would be an automated workflow. It would, come from one source, and as it moves through the system, you would be able to get to the pieces of data that you want, but you would know that you have good data. And so clearly the biggest issue continues to be, the human element, right? How are we filling out those forms? Are we receiving PDFs? Are we receiving emails? Is somebody manually entering the information? Are there several systems that you have to enter that information in order to do what you want to do? Think, shadow IT obviously comes from necessity, and we need the information sooner rather than later. So how do we get to it? So let's, invest in all this tech, but at the end of the day, we're still going to, spread around Excel spreadsheets with the information and still have the human element. So all those things are, I think we would all agree, relatively easy to solve, but for we have legacy systems, legacy processes, and only a handful of people that know where all the body buried. So again, I think what we're seeing in more of a plug and play, and we're not and more out of a custom build DevSecOps environment is the ability to better plug and play one. And so the heavy lift usually always starts with and is most involved with the data cleanup on the front end. So again, if we can simplify that, if we can make sure that we're aggregating in an automated fashion, that the checks along the way are automated as well, then I think we get to a point where we have a better process and usable more readily available data as we move along.
Yeah. No one, I'm sure, on this call, either from a panelist or attendee perspective, have probably never shared an Excel doc out of pocket. I'm sure that's never happened. All right, let's go ahead and get the results of the poll. And when we asked, what is the biggest bottleneck in your current data collection process? Coming in the top spot here is data silos, followed very closely by the thing we were just talking about, shadow IT. and then ending with manual bridge and digital front door. So I think kind of what some of the opportunities and challenges that we've talked about so far make a whole lot of sense in terms of where these polling results are. Charlie, any initial thoughts on seeing the poll results? Does this align to what you expected to see?
Yeah, I think so. I think if you had all of the above, it probably would have been 95% that.
You're right.
But yes, I think that
Yeah,
lines
yeah,
up with what we typically see.
yeah. I think you're probably right about that. All right. We will have more polls as we go because we want to hear from you all as well. So, Trisha, from your perspective, where and how has direct integration into your systems of record, think of things like Salesforce or a CRM, impacted your staff's daily workload compared to the old manual way of data entry?
Yeah, definitely connecting our public touch points, specifically web forms, to our Salesforce system has had a tremendous positive impact across the county, across dozens of applications that we maintain in different departments of the county. It provides controlled user access, transparency, reporting capabilities, increased data quality, just more efficiency, and then it gives us the ability to automate a lot of the work that needs to go in with completing those requests. Whereas previously users might have had to rely on a shared spreadsheet where everybody's in there and making changes
Hmm.
and trying to manage their work to completion with really no capabilities to report on. Little to no identification as who's working which request. So there was a lot of opportunity for the potential of duplicating effort or things just falling through the cracks. Sometimes double data entry of moving things from one spreadsheet to another. So definitely being able to move that data into Salesforce and have that automation has certainly improved what we do.
Wonderful. All right. If you enjoyed our first poll, which I'm sure you all did, you will be thrilled to know that it is time for our second polling question. And for this one, we want to know which compliance or regulatory update is currently your top priority. And we're going to give you a little bit of time to answer that polling question. And while they do, and I think Trisha, I'm going to stick with you here for this question, but we know that in the midst of this changing and evolving tech landscape, we also have changes to the compliance requirements at the state and federal levels when it comes to technology. You got FedRAMP's PMO processes have changed, CMMC is rolling through phase one, and agencies are dealing with the 21st Century IDEA Act and the 2025 Payment Executive Order. So there's a lot of compliance requirements out there. There's a lot of compliance requirements that say similar and then very different things. So it's a lot to handle. So from your perspective, what are you all doing to handle these compliance challenges at the state and local level as you try and kind of understand where things are really headed?
Yeah, it certainly can be a challenge to keep up with all the changes that are coming sometimes very rapidly.
Yeah.
A large part of the work that I do at the county is focus on delivering websites that are built on a user-centric design, mobile friendly,
Mhm.
compliant with the current accessibility standards. So that is certainly a focus of ours is really getting that accessibility.
Mhm.
um, there's also a lot of efforts going on to bring all of our existing public touch points up to date with those standards. So kind of going back and kind of rebuilding and redesigning some things that are out there just to make sure that we have a consistent feel across all of our touch points.
Yeah, there definitely is a lot. And Charlie, what about on the federal side of things? I know a lot of the compliance programs I talked about are headed by federal agencies and departments, and then they trickle down. What are you seeing from the federal level?
So, I mean, you won't be shocked to hear that I think they're still trying to figure it out. I think the accessibility and the 508 and the ADA compliance, that's table stakes. That's been around for a while. That's baked into every systems integration that we see fairly standard, fairly straightforward. The CMMC is obviously kind of the newer one out there. I think the Department of War for sure is kind of championing that. We're seeing the language show up in RFPs, and the like. I think FedRAMP obviously as they're moving through FedRAMP moderate to FedRAMP high and trying to get the actual software vendors trying to get their products approved and kind of slotted in those various areas is certainly their challenge and takes a little while. And again, I go back to what I was saying at the beginning, which is interesting is under current new acquisition and procurement, speed to pilot, if you will. And certainly looking for commercial best practices and commercial products that can kind of meet the need. There is a chance for the savvier contract shops to say, hey, we can use and see what this is going to do. Let's build a pilot capability into phase one of this procurement so we can see again what it is that we're getting, and then it also gives everybody a chance to kind of move along and check the boxes with these various compliance metrics. But, for example, we're moving forward as a systems integrator with our CMMC compliance, right? Level one self-certification seems to meet the need for now, but I think a lot of people are pressing ahead and getting the level two certification in place. And whereas, ISO and CMMI used to be the standards, now we're seeing CMMC is kind of moving in as a gotta have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Booyan, anything you would add to what honestly sounds like we're trying to play like a version of ABC games with the new compliance. They're all different letters and things like that. So
Yeah.
with this soup of compliances, what are you seeing on the federal level?
No, great question. Again, as Charlie kind of talked about, again, from a Fed standpoint, sensitivity of the data as well as compliance, is a very important requirement. And obviously, these rules are coming at a greater speed.
Mhm.
Couple of things to kind of point out what IT organizations are doing, again, at the CIO level, at the CISO level. Obviously, there's a broader strategy in place. Again, basic, ITGC controls, which IT organizations kind of implement as part of the process. Again, those standards regarding sensitive data, identification of sensitive data, you talked about initially about the role of AI, but before we open up the gate for AI, is our data secure? Is our data, also, classified, and can we control who access our sensitive data? That's something, organizations are doing. That's number one. And number two, as part of this process, is also like a broader strategy, no matter what the compliance requirements is to ensure that there are processes in place. IT organizations are working towards that, whether in terms of tools, evaluating tools and how do they manage sensitive data. And secondly, also manage user provisioning. This the right user has the access to the right data. So that's another broader question. And I've seen IT organizations, especially from a CISO level, look at it from, a system of authentication. Instead of like,
Mhm.
obviously they have platforms coming up with different tools and needs, but before a user is provisioned, can we centralize that? Can we ensure that the right user gets right access? And how, again, going back to, how does the user get new authorization? How does the user get promoted? Who has access to data? That's the broader tech strategy, what IT organizations are doing. And as they work towards that, then the compliance need from an accessibility of CMMC already come into play. So that's what I'm saying. So the more strategy as well as working with the new compliance standards.
Makes sense. All right, we've got the second poll results in, and based on kind of what the three of you actually talked about, we're probably not going to be surprised to see that accessibility, 508 compliance, ADA is coming in at the top. And then we've got kind of a close race between FedRAMP and CMMC. So quite a lot of areas that agencies are looking for and kind of prioritizing within their organization. So thank you to our audience for filling out that poll. All right, I want to spend a little bit of time here talking about challenges specifically, and challenges of this changing technology and compliance landscape. I think we've hinted at this a little bit or a lot already, but it can be really hard to get even sort of basic data collection done, especially for some organizations that might be trapped in these paper processes or saddled with some very outdated legacy systems. So, Charlie, from your perspective, what are some of the most manual workarounds that you see agencies using and maybe growing frustrated with before they make the decision that this is an area in which we need to modernize?
Yeah, well, I think it kind of goes back to, the human effort, right? The more
Mhm.
human involvement, the more painful the process typically, can be, and multiplied by number of systems that you have to interface with. So again, cleaner interface, single point of failure with data collection, the ability to leverage that data across multiple work streams and multiple working organizations. I think is kind of the key that how can we get to our data easier, better, and how can it enhance our workflows? I think what we see from our clients as well is, again, how do we reduce the manual hands-on keyboard time it takes for our processing folks, our people that are, the performing the business function to be able to do what they need to do, right? Obviously, then you look and say, well, how did we get here? And you look under the hood and say, well, what does that actually mean at the end of the day? So again, areas where we can, take the current data landscape, make it look clean, land it in a data lake and say, hey, we've got a good starting point and all these various systems can still get the data that they need and move from there, I think is, kind of the first step when it comes to that. But yeah, I think from a overall, like, why are we going to modernize?
Yeah.
It's because it's too clumsy and we know there's a better way to do this.
Makes a whole lot of sense. You're looking for those areas of friction that could be made a little bit easier. Bouillon, from your side of the house, I think what Charlie just said made a lot of sense. Where do you see some of these common challenges or workload areas that could maybe be alleviated if you went down a more modern approach?
Good question, Emily. As Charlie pointed out, again, anything again it starts with the business process, right? So I've seen organizations again start with a basic Excel spreadsheet. I mean, Excel spreadsheet has been the god for collecting data for a while. Then came Google Sheets, and then obviously I'm working with a lot of agencies who do a lot of reviews of documents with respect to claim management and benefit management, Word documents. I mean, these are been the ways tools for collecting of data. But as this data collections evolved, compliance and quality of data became a challenge, and so most of the organizations now go towards modernization. So the question comes down to what is modernization and how could they benefit from it, right? So the data, there is a lot of plethora of tools from form collection tools, right, as Tricia was talking about. But the core requirement really comes down to there's off-the-shelf platforms. There's always custom code. You always can go build your way to it. Or third is using standard platform tools like Salesforce or any other tools. So in this kind of evolution, what I'm seeing IT organizations kind of do is, can we look at one centralized tool than multiple tools? Because then it goes into shadow IT, which you don't want, and users managing multiple tools. So as organizations evolve towards this modernization, there is a big strategy of looking at one central tool for form collection. But the core requirement around it is, can it work with my legacy systems? Can it work with my CRM, my claim management system, or my constituent management system? That's the core requirement. And if that meets the needs, then organizations are evaluating a tool and working towards an implementation. That's what I'm seeing.
Gotcha. That makes a whole lot of sense. All right, Trisha, from your side, you're obviously using platforms like Form Assembly. How has that changed the way your internal teams are viewing the risk? And I've got risk in quotes here, but the risk of launching new digital services.
Yes, form assembly is one of the tools that we have in our toolkit with Salesforce, and it's certainly a great tool to have. We're able to stand up forms and series of forms with all the dynamic branching that we need to meet our unique needs in a relatively short period of time. Most folks are expecting projects to take months and months, and we can stand up from, concept to delivery and production in just a matter of weeks. So the risk is really reduced there. Um, Being able to link those forms to Salesforce data, have automatic ticket assignments and automated email responses back to customers has improved our responsiveness and reduced that manual effort. So, as Charlie mentioned, that the less effort you have, the more modern and better and more efficient your systems are. So, um, we're able to also ensure that across all of our forms that we have the same branding and styling components, so we have that consistent look and feel, which is really important to have in our digital touch points.
Yeah, I think that consistent look and feel is so essential. I think of folks interacting with government systems like my dad, and he hates it when I put him on the spot, but he just went through the Social Security Administration process of filing for his retirement benefits, and he couldn't understand how the system was working in a lot of places because it said one thing in one place, looked and felt different in another place. And he really struggled through the process. But then my mom went through a year or so later and they'd really revamped the process and
Hmm.
put digital services first.
Yeah.
And you can kind of see the difference in just a couple of years by kind of focusing on even just that look and feel, how big of an impact that can have on the end user themselves. So I
Yeah, for
really,
sure.
Charlie, were you going to add something?
No, I was just saying, I mean, it seems obvious, but the idea is, when you're building something over several years, you kind of lose the forest through the trees, or
Yeah.
however they say that correctly. I can never get that straight. And yeah, and then what you end up with is, how does this best serve the constituent? Oh, maybe it doesn't, right? So 100 reasons for that, but I think the Social Security Administration is a perfect example, and IRS as well, right? I mean, I
Yes.
think I think they've gone a long way to understanding, hey, let's spend a lot of time and thought on user experience.
Hmm. Hmm. And just to be clear, in my dad's case, a lot of it was user error, but it did get quite a bit better. All
Yeah.
right, I have a couple more kind of questions for all of you, but I just want to remind our audience that we're here to answer your questions. So if there's something you've been holding back on, well, stop. We want to answer your questions early and often, so go ahead and throw those in. But I want to turn our focus now a little bit to this idea of government agility. And I think oftentimes agility is measured by how quickly a program can go from an idea to putting it in front of a constituent and allowing them to kind of experience that. So, Trisha, from your experience, any examples or instances you want to share where an automated workflow allowed your team and you to respond to a constituent need faster than before?
Sure. So one area of that I can mention is that we were seeing a huge increase in the volume of passport requests related to
Mm.
the anticipated launch of the Real ID requirements.
Hmm.
We were able to stand up an online appointment scheduling application so citizens could see where there was an opening to register themselves with a time slot. And that how allowed us to eliminate those long wait times that we were seeing in the passport office, and also allowed our county departments to better manage the amount of staff that they needed to have on hand to accommodate that demand. And they were able to see kind of what their schedule was going to be like because they had a shared calendar in Salesforce of all those booked appointments so they could better manage their work.
That's a wonderful example as someone who waited 3 months to get their updated passport. I would have really appreciated that kind of system being in place for my experience. But that's a wonderful example. Um, Booyan, from your purview, what is the biggest hurdle as you're working with your government agency partners? What do you see as their biggest barrier to that time to mission that agencies often overlook when going through an implementation?
That's a good question, Emily. And again, for government agencies across the gamut, right? Obviously, there is always, the speed of delivery is an important aspect to it. But as they go through that journey, I mean, again, talking about specific examples, right? I mean, working with this one state agency for a benefit management system, multi-step forms, right? I mean,
Mhm.
we are talking about a 50 to 75 step form, which is in the works. And again, government agencies sometimes take the approach of maybe the off-the-shelf solutions may not fit all this crazy, multi-step form. So why don't we do a custom build on it? And they get to that path, and then in the middle of it, user experience becomes a challenge, maintenance becomes a challenge, and then the cost of risk and audit compliance becomes a challenge. So I've worked with a couple of things around that. Again, from Tricia kind of alluded to the form assembly capabilities of it, where I've done that, where again, native capabilities, integration with CRM tools like pre-fill connectors and all that. That's one simple use case. The second aspect of it is, again, use cases regarding document management, where they just have to upload documents and review these documents and assign it to the right case or a claim. I mean, these are simple, looks very simple use cases, but as IT organizations look at it, then they go into, okay, maybe a document management solution is the solution for it, and they go into that journey. And as they go into that journey, then comes the question of how is it integrated with their core CRM? That's the open question. How is that connected to the benefit management system or a claim management system? How easy is it to categorize the data, and how can we, weed off sensitive data? So these are challenges which IT organizations are not seeing ahead because of the speed. They kind of get into a solution off the shelf and then get into a 6 months to 2 years build, facing all these challenges where they end up, scraping the current solution and looking for another solution. So they ask again, what ID organizations kind of tend to look at is you get your use case, look at it from a 6 month to a 3 year lens. Obviously, there are requirements which you have to meet. I mean, I've seen IT leaders look at that, but then the core capabilities, how does this data, whether it's documents or sensitive data and all that, land on your core, like, core systems, right? Is it a CRM? Is it a benefit management, a claim management solution? So as they go look at that, then the lens changes and the question changes from an off-the-shelf to a pre-filled solution, which can connect to the core system. It's one system. So that's one of the things, most of the organizations are kind of looking at. So these are examples of us from an implementation standpoint, from a vendor tool selection standpoint. IT organizations are changing their approach. And obviously, compliance comes as aspect of it, getting the CIO or the CISO involved as part of compliance, but not really focused on that. But again, having the right controls in place helps them along the way.
Yeah. I hate the phrase, no one likes to know how the sausage is made, but I think it is accurate in this kind of setting because when you are sitting around a room and you're talking about the art of the possible, about how these digital services could really transform your organization, it's wonderful. And then you kind of get down to the brass tacks of actually figuring out how it works. And it can be a really big undertaking that often feels overwhelming for agencies. So I appreciate Bhuyan, you kind of running through that process for us because I think oftentimes people do get in a little bit over their heads at the beginning and haven't quite thought through all of the ramifications and opportunities that come with a new implementation. Charlie, from your perspective, where do you see some of those hurdles popping up in that time to mission for agencies?
It's a good question. I think everybody on the webinar is going to have their own version of it, right? But I mean, it's starts with how quickly we can actually procure an award, right, and get a vendor in. As I mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, the idea that we're going to select multiple vendors and those multiple vendors are going to enter a pilot phase kind of brings up what Booyan was talking about, an accelerator and
Mhm.
a better starting point. So you actually hit the ground running once that systems integrator or software vendor is identified. And again, the tools that they use to shape and run and manage programs, right? I mean, everything that enters in has to be ATO'd. And so you still have a lot of human element and different factions that kind of have to do their piece along the way. So I would still say that, speed to award and actually getting the systems integrator in and with access and ready to start doing meaningful work probably continues to be, one of the biggest hurdles. But then I think, more importantly, it's, are we biting off more than we can chew? Are we clearly defined on what it is that we're trying to do, and how are we able to mark success along the way, right? And I think that if you can look at the world through a 3 to 6 month lens, or a phase one, phase two, phase three kind of lens, you can measure along the way, you can course correct along the way. And I think that that ultimately helps for a more agile and quicker delivery of capabilities. And I think that helps everybody.
Makes sense. All right, we are rapidly running out of time for today's trading, but I'm not going to let you all go before I give you kind of one final question. And Trisha, I'm going to start with you. We've talked a lot on today's training, everything from kind of the compliance challenge to the opportunity to where it can lead with some digital services, and really making things better for the constituent experience. What challenges or opportunities do you want folks to think about as they walk away from today's session? What do you want their takeaway to be?
Oh, that's a good question. Definitely that there's opportunities out there. I mean, I would look at processes to see where there are bottlenecks, where there is a lot of manual effort being spent, where you probably don't need it. You can probably look at ways to automate things and to have some systems be able to do some of that work, so that way you're not, the more people that are involved, the more work, the more time and cost there is, and the more prone some things are to error. So anywhere where there's areas to improve a process, those are good places to look.
Wonderful. Charlie, what would your takeaway be?
I would just say use the industry, right? If you're inside state and local government, or you're on the federal side, use industry. Talk to Form Assembly. They'd be happy to chat with you. Talk to the systems integrators that are currently at your agency right now. I mean, chances are they, can certainly address and give you some free consulting along the way about a place to start. So I would say those relationships are super important. I don't think you feel the need to make a decision in a vacuum, but avail yourself of some of that free consulting that is probably at and around your agency right now, to at least help you think of a starting point and an overall strategy for what you want to do, and how you can articulate that.
Makes a whole lot of sense. All right, Bouillon, you get to have our final takeaway here. What would you want the audience to walk away thinking about, knowing, having in the back of their brains?
So again, it's a three-pronged approach, I would say. Keep it simple with people, process, and technology. Again, the people side of it, increasing the skills and capabilities of the current tools. The process side is important. I mean, data collection is great. We got the tools in place, but do we have a process to collect the data from start to end? And the third is from a technology standpoint, look at it from a long term, not just from an off-the-shelf, 3 month to 6 month, but from a 2 to 3 year. And again, looking at working with the compliance hand in hand in the early stages than going at the last stage of the project. So those are things I would advise on.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Charlie, Trisha, and Bouillon, for sharing your insights with us today. Before anyone goes anywhere, though, we do have a special guest joining us. And here to tell us a little bit about Form Assembly itself is Josh Straley. So, Josh, thanks so much for joining us here. Why don't you take it away?
Thank you, Emily, and I do want to extend my heartfelt thanks to Charlie, Bouillon, and Tricia. Thanks for the discussion today. Form Assembly is a data collection platform. We care about these processes. We care about these challenges with public sector organizations at the state and local level, at the federal level, and most recently we pushed into federal and DoD level organizations with some recent compliances that we attained. And so we're trying to bring some modernization tools to public sector. So when, as our panelists said, you start to analyze your processes, you start to find bottlenecks, or as many of you have already identified, if you're seeing data silos at your organization, if you're seeing things that are not working out, systems that are funneling data to the wrong areas or incorrect data, poorly formatted, incomplete data. This is all where Form Assembly's purview is at. I know a lot of you, it sounds like if you've joined this call, your organization, your agency has probably already modernized. But we do recognize that in the public sector, there are still paper-based processes, like these executive orders, these compliances are trying to push public sector agencies in the right direction, and get rid of paper checks, start processing payments digitally. If you need help with that, Form Assembly has been in the game, especially in the private sector, for 20 years. And we see data collection processes far beyond forms. I know many on this call in that first poll said that they were not necessarily seeing poor experiences at the front door, right? Forms work better now. I filed my taxes recently. I can say they're not exactly dynamic, but they do work. But if you are still seeing that follow-up right behind the form, if those processes aren't working, Form Assembly has some tools to help you with that. Again, we can help you modernize paper-based processes, but more than anything, we can help you eliminate data silos by pumping data directly where it needs to go, especially if it's Salesforce, but also SharePoint, any of these public sector kind of solutions. If you're using, at the federal level, if you're using a FedRAMP version of Google Workspace or Microsoft, we can support that as well. I think it's kind of been said at this in this panel, but all of these agencies have different use cases, right? It seems like, and Emily, if you don't mind advancing to the next slide, I know that every agency is doing data collection differently. Form Assembly is used across industries, across verticals, and across different levels of government with hundreds of use cases. If you're looking to consolidate your data collection processes, if you're looking for a tool that can handle things like 48-step forms that Booyan has helped implement, or simple contact us forms that you just need to get over to a lead object. If you have simple to sophisticated, we can support that and we want to help you. So, as Charlie mentioned, start internally, start analyzing your processes. If you see a need for some data collection improvements at your organization, come talk to Form Assembly. We have helped organizations like Multnomah County and federal level agencies, and we can bring some data collection improvements to your organization. If you are not necessarily, if you're looking for inspiration and you're not ready to necessarily get some, consultation from Form Assembly, I do have some resources that I'd love to call your attention to. Emily, I have one more slide up. We do have some ebooks available in the resources section. We also have a recent webinar. If you are dabbling in AI initiatives and you're finding that your data quality is an issue. Just yesterday, myself and a solution engineer showed how you can start making sure records are complete, making sure that related records look related to your AI agents. If you're interested in that topic at all, we had a great demo that shows you how you can kind of take control of that data collection right at the point of entry to make sure that agentic processes are powered well. I encourage you to take a look at that. That was a great webinar. And then again, if you're ready to see something more personalized or you're just looking to talk to an expert, I do encourage you to reach out to my team. I'm a bit of a blabbermouth, but I guarantee you they'll do more listening than talking, and they can help you find some better data collection opportunities in your organization. But I do want to thank our audience for our time, and I do want to thank our panel again. This is the kind of conversation Form Assembly likes to be involved in because this is the important stuff. If our government is going to move faster, if our agencies are going to be more efficient, and if the pressure's there both in the public and private sector. If you're expected to do more things with smaller teams or less of a tech budget, efficiency, automation, that's our bread and butter. We can help you tackle those challenges, and we'd love to help. Emily, I want to thank you and the GovLoop team for the opportunity today. Thank you for giving me a little time.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all so very, very much. All right, we have a few quick reminders before you log off today. Just a note that those resources that Josh just mentioned, you can find those under the resources tab on today's training, so make sure you check those out. Those will also be available on demand, which we will be sending you to a link to tomorrow, so check your inboxes for that. I want to extend another round of thanks to our wonderful speakers for sharing their insights with us today. But on behalf of GovLoop and Form Assembly, I hope you enjoyed today's session. And as always, we really appreciate and value the work that you do. So thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us this afternoon. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you at our next training. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Emily.